So you may have noticed that in this day and age, a lot of South Africans are actually starting to consider buying vacant land or stands, as we would call them, instead of actually buying homes that have already been built. Now, some of the reasons why a lot of people say this is actually happening is because a lot of people are moving towards these areas where there's not a lot of development because they want to have this quiet time or be in this quiet area where there's not a lot of things going on. And secondly, a lot of people say that it's actually a good investment to actually buy these types of stands. And thirdly, a lot of people actually are considering or buying these types of lands because they have their own structures in mind. Buying a house that's already been built, it's been built according to somebody else's taste, but now people get the opportunity to buy land and build a structure that they want, that they like. But even though this might sound like a good idea or a good thing for a lot of people, there has been quite a number of scams attached to such transactions. People buying vacant land and actually finding out that they have been scammed through this process. So as a result of that, I decided to do a video where I actually share just a few tips on what you need to look out for when you're actually going to buy a property or vacant land in South Africa, so that at least you can steer clear from being scammed like others who have actually been part of these transactions, and also know exactly the type of property that you're buying. Because once you've bought this type of property, you cannot say, no, you know what, this is not what I wanted, or this is not what I had in mind, I'd like my money back. That's not how it works. So you want to make sure that when you're purchasing, you're paying the purchase price, this is exactly what you want, and you've considered all of the things that I think important to consider when you're going to buy vacant land. So without further ado, let's get into the content. But before we do so, to the people that are new here, welcome. My name is Yolanda Mnyengeza, and I'm an attorney and a director at Mnyengeza Attorneys. Let's get into the content. So the first thing that I think you should always look out for before you actually purchase this type of property or this land is you want to make sure that it has been zoned for the purpose at which you're buying it for. For example, if you're buying a land in order for you to build your residential home, you want to make sure that that land has already been zoned for residential purposes. Because if not, you'll have to then, effect all of these changes through the municipality. And that is actually a very long process and is often a bit complicated. So you don't want to go there. So you want to make sure that the property has been zoned for this particular purpose that you have in mind. So how can you make sure that this property is zoned for this particular reason or what you have in mind? You want to get all of those details from the developer, request all of the necessary paperwork to ascertain that this particular development has been zoned for residential properties to be built on. So the second thing that you want to look at is you want to make sure that the developer is actually legit. They are the rightful owners of this land. They've got every right to sell it to you. And if there's an agent here, you want to make sure that this agent is also not bogus. You want to look into them. You want to look into the authority that they have. And in addition to this, you want to look at the developer. So you want to do your research, proper research, to make sure that both of these people or this particular developer is the rightful owner of this property, and they've got every right to sell it to you. Because we have to agree, a lot of people have actually posed as developers or agents, and they've actually transpired to not be those people and to actually be people that are scamming other people. So always do your research, more especially if the person is just, or the developer is just going to sell you the stand. Nothing else. They're not going to help you build. They are just going to sell the stand. You want to do proper research there, because once you make payment towards the sale, they're gone. Because what they needed to do there is to sell you the property. You bought it, the rest is your responsibility. So you want to make sure that you know exactly who you're dealing with here. Okay. And also another thing that you want to look out for is who you're going to pay this money to. It's also going to show you whether or not the person that you're dealing with is actually legit. Now, a lot of non-legit people, what they tend to do is they tend to want people to pay cash up front in order for people to secure the stands. That is not how it works. If you remember or recall from the other property videos that I've done, buying or selling or the transaction of such immovable properties in South Africa is governed by the law. And in terms of the law, everything must be in writing. And so when someone puts pressure on you to give them money cash, you should already know that is a red flag. More especially if they haven't helped you sign anything here through their lawyers. You should already know that that is a red flag. So you want to be certain who you're paying this amount of money to. And before you even pay the money to them, you want to be able to see the lawyer and be able to ascertain that you're dealing with the right people and sign the necessary paperwork. That is the only time you can actually consider paying those people. And in actual fact, make sure that you're paying the attorneys majority of the time instead of paying the developer themselves who do not have anything written down. Otherwise, you may lose your money. Let's go into the third thing that I think you should actually consider as well. Now, remember the first thing I said you should consider? I said you should consider the type of land that you're buying. Has it been zoned for what I have in mind? I want a residential property. So is that particular land zoned for that? Now, in addition to that particular inquiry, you need to make sure that the land or the soil of this land is suitable for the type of building that you have in mind. Remember I said a lot of people are now moving towards these particular vacant lands because they want to build their own structures. They've got something else in mind than the norm. So you want to make sure that whatever it is that you have in mind can happen on the soil that you're buying, the land that you're buying. So how are you going to actually find out whether or not this particular land is suitable for the type of building that you have in mind? So all of this information you will be able to find in the geotechnical report. So the geotechnical report is actually the one that's going to contain, what this type of soil can actually build. If you want a certain building, what will it cost you or what will be required in order for you to be able to build that type of property? What's the type of property that can be built here? And all of that type of information. So you want to be certain that this is not going to cost you an arm and a leg, because if, for instance, in the report it's stated that only certain buildings can be built here and you have something else in mind, it might actually mean that you may have to hire engineers to do something on the soil. So you want to just be certain that this report will also be in line with what you have in mind. Otherwise, if it's not, it might actually cost you a bit of money to make sure that the soil will be up to standard so that you can build the type of property that you have in mind. Now, the other thing that you want to look out for is the type of future developments that can be done on this particular land. Can people be allowed to actually build triple-story houses in the future? Or double-story houses? How is this going to affect you? Let's say you're a neighbor to someone who has a double-story house. Is the sun not going to be blocked? Know exactly what type of future developments can be made on the property. Otherwise, it may actually not be a good idea to buy in such a property where people actually can build whatever it is that they like, because it might actually block you from accessing the sun. Because as we all know, residential homes are nicer when you actually have access to the sun. So you also want to look into those types of things. And also you want to look at the other developments that are going to affect where you're currently staying. If you recall, I said in the beginning, a lot of people are also moving to these vacant landed properties or these vacant lands so that they can find much more serene areas that they can live at. So you want to also understand, what is the future plan for this area? Are we expecting more schools to be built? Are we expecting malls to be built here? Are we expecting other service providers to also arrive? What is the situation going to be in the near future, so that you know exactly what you're getting yourself into? Because once you have committed yourself to a property, it's very difficult to exit that type of, commitment. So you want to make sure that you understand the current situation of where you're going to buy this property and also the future developments of this particular area, so that you can make sure whether or not this is something you want to invest in. So what's the easiest way that you can do this? You want to speak to a reputable agent that's actually applicable in that particular area. They will probably know what's going to happen in the future and what are the plans for that particular area, so that you also are at a green light and so that you can make the right choice for yourself. Now, the other thing that you want to look at, or the fifth thing that you want to have considered, is the financing. If you're not going to buy this property or this vacant land using your own amount of money, and you're going to need bank or the bank to finance you, you want to make sure that the bank can be able to finance you in accordance. Now, one thing you should understand about vacant land is that sometimes banks are not always willing, to give you the full amount to purchase such lands. According to them, they're actually very risky investments, because as much as other people have in mind to build certain homes, sometimes they just buy the land and then they don't have the money to actually build. So you want to make sure that at least this particular land that you're going to buy is going to be financed by the bank. And all of this you will find out when you're going through the process, but also just keep that in mind. And another thing that will have an impact on this finance that you're going to be provided by the bank is actually where you're situated, or where this land is situated, because the bank is also going to look at that before they actually give you an amount of money. And they're also going to look at things such as the size of this property that you want to build on. So you want to make sure that those things you think about and also consider before choosing a particular vacant land in order for you to build on it. And as a bonus point, let's talk about the last thing. Just buying the standalone, the developer is not going to purchase or is not going to build on the property. You also want to consider these particular costs that I'm going to speak to now, and that is building costs and also the architectural costs that you're going to need in order for this building that you have in mind to be effected. Remember, a builder is going to require their own amount of money. Also, if there is an architect here, they're also going to require payment. So you want to also map that out and understand what the cost implications are going to be, so that you can actually create a proper plan on how you're going to build on this property. For instance, if you're going to use a builder that's actually recommended by the developer, you want to do your research on this particular builder. As I said before, or if I did not say this, the NHBRC requires that these types of builders actually be registered with them. So you want to make sure that the person you're dealing with is registered with the NHBRC. And in addition to this, you want to know and do your research on their service provision. What does it look like? Are they very good at delivering or not? Because once you actually enter into an agreement with them, canceling that type of agreement may come with cost implications. So you just want to make sure that the person that you're going to deal with or you're going to hire as your builder is someone that is reputable and that is going to provide you the building that you desire. So that's about it when it comes to things I think you should consider when you're buying vacant land. So as I always say, before you commit yourself to these types of transactions, when you're buying landed property, you want to make sure that you speak to your own legal practitioner. And in addition to this, you don't want to sign anything until such time your own legal practitioner has had a look at the documents that you're going to sign, so that they can help make sure that everything is up to standard and everything is actually legit. So I hope this information is going to be useful to you, if not now, in the future. Like I always say, if there's someone you think could actually make use of this information, make sure you send it to them, subscribe, come back, because we will be producing more content for you. Let's meet next time when we talk about something that could be useful to you. My name is Yolanda Mnyengeza, and I'm an attorney and a director at Mnyengeza Attorneys. Let's see you next time